The Boston Celtics are going to face major question marks in the offseason. They got bounced by the Knicks in round 2, and their franchise star tore his Achilles in game 4. The Celtics do have enough talent to survive without Tatum, but what's going to happen in this offseason will fracture the foundation of this team because Tatum's injury is one of the many problems they're going to have to deal with.
The rest of the league is bracing for some level of change to come to the Celtics from their roster this offseason.
Obviously, losing Tatum for potentially the entire next season will hurt, but the Celtics playing the East, you can still see a path that these guys can still make the playoffs next year.
Listen, he said he's trying to get back in 9 months. Don't know if that's possible or not. It obviously depends on how rehab is.
It is possible because everyone obviously heals differently.
Yeah.
We've seen people come back earlier from obviously Achilles and ACL injuries now because usually those are the ones that take 1 year. So like if he's like on his rehab and the healing process is actually, he's lucky in the healing process, I could see a path where he's back, playoff time next year.
And he's not the only injury we have to worry about. Jaylen Brown, it was reported that he was playing on a partial torn MCL, torn meniscus as well. So who knows what his status is going to be. Obviously, he will probably look to be coming sooner than later. We'll see what that happens as well. But the biggest issue with this team was not this at the moment, right? Even when they were healthy, there was a big question mark heading into it. This is more recency bias that we're talking about. It was a report that Shams had either in round 1 or before round 1 started that the Celtics need to make trades come this offseason. And the reason why I say that is Jayson Tatum's contract is going from $34 million this season to $54 million next year. And that's a $20 million jump. And the reason why I say that is the NBA has changed their cap rules and all that stuff. The reason, so in general, that's a $20 million jump. They're already past the second apron if that's the case.
Here's essentially, this is, I guess a short, quick issue there. Like this is the real issue they have to face.
Yeah.
Like this is the main issue that people need to have more conversations about. People probably already have, but like this right here, what the Celtics got to deal with it is massive. The reason why it is massive because just last year these guys won the NBA title and they won in dominating fashion. They were the best team throughout the regular season and in the playoffs, right? And that's because they were able to add pieces to surround themselves with championship winning pieces, and ultimately it led to what it was exactly, a title, right? Surrounding Tatum and Brown with the right fits and the right pieces and the right stars. So just last year, we're like, this team can go back to back if they're healthy, right? And obviously, then we see the first 3 games in the next series, they're down 2-1. And then in game 4, they did blow another fourth quarter lead, losing to the Knicks, being down 3-1. And on top of that, you lose Jayson Tatum for quite possibly the next year as well. So when you're looking at it, it just is one I guess playoff loss just like changed the direction of how we're looking at the Boston Celtics now. And that is like because of what you said, Tatum's massive contract is kicking in next year. And the issue is now that one of Drew Holiday, or maybe both, 2 or multiple, but one or multiple of Drew Holiday, Derek White, and Tingus Pingus might have to be gone next year.
Listen, I don't think it's happening, but Jaylen Brown can be the conversation. I don't think so. And I'll talk about Jaylen Brown in a second because, listen, at the end of the day, if Jayson Tatum was healthy next year, I believe this team was still like a top 4, top 5 team in the East regardless. They obviously have, listen, the good thing is like, for example, if you're going to move on from Drew Holiday, yes, he didn't have the greatest postseason this year. He still has some type of value that could garner a return. The problem is Jayson Tatum is now down. And this is where Jaylen Brown, assuming he's healthy, got paid to be a number 1 essentially. And this is time for him to shut all of us up thinking that he's not a number 1 in this league. Obviously, at this moment, he's probably a 1B, but there's still an argument that is he more of a number 2 than he is a 1. Like now he has the opportunity, he has the keys, he is the 1A. And going back to the cap situation here once again, breaking that down, this year they're at a $193 million. I think that's already over, but they were still in the apron. That's why they were able to pay guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday, right? Drew Holiday got the extension when he got traded there. Next year, the caps are $227 million with all those guys. I'm assuming Al Horford's coming back. He's the only one that's really off the books. And I feel like he'll come back on a minimum because it's Al Horford.
It is Al Horford.
And he's 38 years old. According to Bobby Marks from ESPN, the cap is projected to go up 10%. The league set the cap is projected to be at $154.6 million, projected to be at $187.9 with a luxury tax. So they're obviously well above over that. Projects to be $195.9 and the second apron to be $207.8 million, which is higher by 17.8% last year. They're already over that. So that's why they need to make trades. And the question is, who are the people to be traded, right?
That is the main question, right?
I think, here's the thing. One last thing. Here's the thing. It is going to be a 1 year, like a 1 year issue for me, in my opinion. Because once Tatum comes back healthy, I feel like, assuming he's the same Tatum, they should be fine going into the future.
No, but here's the thing. I can't guarantee that. You know why? We've seen clear flaws with the Celtics team before last season and their last season title one. The issue with the Boston Celtics was they lacked a big man and they lacked a ball handler. Not necessarily like a full-blown facilitator, like he needs to be like Chris Paul, but a guy who just, could bring the ball up the court so Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown could start in their spots already instead of them bringing the ball up the court as well. And obviously Brown and Tatum's handle is not the greatest either. Obviously they're more for their shot making ability and obviously their defense as well and shot creation as well. But that's where a guy like Jrue Holiday came in. He did that and provided the elite defense. And then another guy, you brought in Kristaps Porzingis, who was able to ring protect when he was healthy and on the floor, and he was able to stretch the floor and was able to hit that mid-range shot as well and be a proper, stretch big as well. So them adding those pieces is the reason why they got elevated to that title contender. Like at the end of the day, they were there, right? But Tatum and Brown just needed some little bit more help. And they got that, right? But now, obviously, you're going to have to move on from one or two of these guys here. And I'm assuming, like, personally, I'm going to keep the younger guy in Derek White over Jrue.
And his contract is more cheaper.
And Jrue Holiday.
But the problem is, he is the more valuable, I would say, in my opinion. Because Jrue Holiday is 34 years old.
So that's the point I'm getting to. So say you're getting rid of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, right? Let's just say they're going to get traded just to be cap compliant for next season. You're going to have to find a way to get a somewhat, not exact replica of Jrue Holiday, but like a somewhat, similar type of player where a guy could handle the ball and was able to set up, Tatum and Brown when they're back healthy to create the offense, as well as not be an issue defensively. Because the big thing about the Celtics team was that they were literally 1-5, so good defensively. Each and every player, they could switch anyone, and anyone can guard any team's best player. The opposing team's best player. And obviously with Kristaps Porzingis, they lacked a big, and it was an issue because at the end of the day, Al Horford logging those many minutes is not good for him, right? And getting another big was very important and talented big, and they got Porzingis, but now they're gonna have to find a way to get his abilities as well and his type of player as well. So if they don't do that, I don't think it's necessarily gonna be a 1 year fix. So that's why these decisions are so important, because if they want to stay in that upper tier 1 level of the teams. Like, I'm not saying if these guys are gone, they're going to drop all to like tier 2 or tier 3. Like, but if they want to stay in the upper, the best team in basketball, they're going to have to figure out a way to make these trades and get the right pieces and right fits back.
Here's the thing. One, they have Brad Stevens in the front office. I trust him. He made these moves anyways. Two, you have valuable pieces to move. Maybe the only one is Kristaps Porzingis. I'll say that. He has $30 million next year. Maybe they buy him out. I don't know what the case is going to be. Jrue Holiday, like, I'm looking at my Lakers, for example. I don't know if they'll make a trade, but I'm just saying, like, they could try to finesse a way and get someone decent to help them right now, right? Next year, yeah, you're right. The question is, like, if you're looking at it realistically right now, they're 7 players deep when they're healthy at the best. Al Horford coming off the bench, obviously Peyton Pritchard, the 6th man of the year, right? I'm banking on Jayson Tatum coming back healthy. The following year, Jaylen Brown, let's see what type of player he is next year. And if I'm the Celtics, I'm keeping Derek White, like you said. Simple as that. So you're going to move off of Jrue Holiday. You're probably going to, first of all, the team that you make trades with, unless you're cap dumping him to a team that has no cap, literally, has to hit the cap floor, like a young team, and then they could deal with, like, kind of like how Jrue Holiday got traded to Portland, for example. Exactly. Like that type of way, then that's a different story. Then you can free up the cap space. Looking at free agency right now, nothing crazy. Obviously, there are player options with certain guys. James Harden, I think he's going to go back to the Clippers. We already know the Kyrie Irving experiment there. I don't think LeBron's going there. Fred is a club option. If they get rid of him, maybe they could bring in a guy like Fred VanVleet to be that ball handler. We'll see how that ends up being. They could also do sign and trades. D'Angelo Russell's available as well. Yes, he doesn't hit the defensive side of things. Chris Paul's going to be available again as your facilitator. So, like, but overall, though, here's like the thing is, when you're looking at the competition in the East, I'm only confident in the Pacers, the Knicks, the 2 teams that are in the conference finals this year, assuming nothing changes too much, and I'm confident in the Cavs to hopefully have a bounce back year. I don't know what's happening with Giannis. If the Sixers are healthy, they're a team that might come up next year for sure. But that's about it. So Boston has a legit chance to still be a top 6 team next year.
Yeah, top 6 is a case. You could still see, the Pistons obviously being ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and the Pistons,
because they're on the come up. If the
Yeah.
Magic figure out their offense, they could be, up there and they're healthy
Yeah.
next year, in my opinion. And yeah, like at the end of the day, like minimum, these guys are going to be a 7-8 seed, in my opinion, next year because they do have enough talent with Jaylen Brown. And even if you lose, Drew Holiday, you'll still get something back, some player, like, a playable player back. Same with Porzingis, I believe. And at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown's and the surrounding cast of, Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, I think will be enough for them to like at least be in a playing spot for sure, guaranteed, in my opinion.
We don't like a style. Like, you don't need a superstar or a all-star level player at every position, right? You just find a guy that could play their role, right? I'm looking at a guy like, I'm not saying Ivica Zubac is going to be available. I'm saying a guy like that who's fulfilling his role properly. You can find a big man like that. Your scorers are going to be Jayson Tatum, or Jaylen Brown, sorry, for next year specifically. You're going to have Derek White hopefully take a step in that case, right? But if you're looking at teams that potentially need to make trades that are basketball type trades, obviously I said the Lakers. We'll see what happens with OKC because they have to pay their guys eventually as well, right? J-Dub and Chat, who are having phenomenal off seasons right now. The MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is gonna up for a supermax, and he's probably gonna get it because he's literally the MVP of this year. Those are some teams. Denver, they have a lot of question marks happening there as well. So like, just before we close it out here, these guys still will be fine. I trust their front office. Like I said, it's tough to come back from an Achilles. I get that, but like we've seen a lot of cases now where players have come back regardless of age. Like look at Kevin Durant, for example.
Yeah.
Jayson Tatum, at the end of the day, he was a top 5 MVP candidate in my opinion last year. When he comes back, he should probably be the same that way. So they don't have to worry about that. Only thing I just think they have to worry about next year. And then if they could figure out certain things, like do they have young guys? Can they draft? Maybe next year's a flyer year. Let's say they do the Golden State when Kevin Durant left, Curry got hurt, Draymond got hurt, Klay Thompson was out for the year. They might have that type of situation, and they have assets they could trade. For example, like how Golden State did not trade their guys, they might have the assets to trade. And boom, someone's gonna come in return. This is the NBA. Someone's gonna be disgruntled.
Obviously, like
guys like Julius Randle's available in free agency.
Yeah, a lot of parity, and there's all this stuff. So like my biggest issue is that we've seen clear and obvious problems from the Celtics pre-championship year that got solved by making a trade for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. So my only concern is that can you get those fits back again next season? And if you can, I will still have full confidence in the Boston Celtics. If not, I'm not saying they're going to be like, have a fall off or anything. I still think they'll do enough to make the play-in as long as, Brown and Pritchard and Derek White stay healthy, and along with Al Horford as well. And I think they will, be able to make a playoff / play-in push guaranteed, in my opinion. But the thing is, just to get there and get back to the championship level, they answered questions with getting Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. So in my opinion, it is very important to get some sort of similar players that filled those roles back in return, just because that's what got them over the hump last year when they beat the Mavericks in the final.
Yeah, no, overall, like I said, for me, just to close it out here, Celtics next year might be a flyer year, but after that, this should be fine, assuming health is good. Listen, this front office, for the most part, listen, I'm not a Celtics fan, neither are you. We don't like the Celtics, but at the end of the day, you gotta respect what their front office has done prior to Brad Stevens and now post Brad Stevens. The question is the coaching and the 3-point shooting. That's a different argument to have, but in terms of roster construction and development of certain players, they're able to get it done. I feel like they'll be fine. They're lucky they're in the Eastern Conference, especially if Giannis goes to the Western Conference. So that's the good thing. If this was a West, okay, then I'll be like next year, write them off. There might be a write-off, assuming if Jaylen Brown doesn't pan out what he wants to be. Very last thing I want to say, let's see. Jaylen Brown, your time is up. Time is now, sorry. And see what's going to happen. This is your chance to prove to people, like, hey, I am a number one in this league, and you could build a team around me. And let's see how that happens.
Yeah, well, honestly, that's what, like, when you're looking at Jaylen Brown, in case... Like, that's obviously going to be his prove a year, but at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown has nothing left to really prove, in my opinion. He is, at the end of the day, a bona fide year in, year out all-star. And, at the end of the day, like, that's, a top-level player in the NBA, and he has been that, throughout his career, and especially, these recent years as well. Obviously, he wants to be the number one, and that this is his best chance of proving it. I 100% agree with that, but in terms of, like, I don't think there's that much pressure really on him just to do it, just because at the end of the day, we're not going to expect much. And, look... Here's the thing, because the only way you will see, like, only way is pressure is if he comes out and says that, you know, this is my team, I gotta do this, I gotta take all that. Then yeah, if he's gonna own it, then you're like, you know, you gotta own it and, you know, step up. But at the end of the day, you know, he is still like a 1v, maybe a 2, but I think he will do a good job. I think I'm like I say, the reason why I didn't talk much about Tatum is because I'm confident he'll come back from his injury.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm not talking much about Brown is because I'm confident he'll do his job too, because he has done that the last couple of years, and he showed that last year in the postseason as well.
But yeah, as you could tell, this is our basketball channel. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, like this video down below. Comment down below what teams you would like to talk about that are in the playoffs right now, that are out of the playoffs. Make sure you guys check out this video coming up to our left, our predictions for this Western and Eastern Conference Finals that are popping up. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.